Good morning, everyone. My name is Avi, and I'm the head of partnerships here at SmartSuite. Today, I'm going to be walking you through a building and automating your first workflow webinar, which is basically the building blocks of SmartSuite. We can get a little advanced maybe with automations and maybe touching for a second on formulas. But before we get there, we're just going to dive right in. As I go, please send in all your questions. Type them in the Q&A or in the chat. Feel free to ask any questions. Let me know if there's anything specific that you wanted me to cover. And without further ado, we're going to jump right in. As many of you are probably familiar, this is the SmartSuite homepage. Just a few things to note before we dive into actually building in the product. So right over here on the left side, you'll have a whole bunch of resources. For example, the mobile apps, which you can scan and get. We have iOS and Android apps. You can reach the website from over here. We have a template gallery with over 200 best-in-class templates. So you can search for specific templates or specific processes in different categories, browse the templates. You can actually see the structure of what's built in the template, and then simply download that into your environment, which is basically what you're seeing in here. I downloaded a whole bunch of templates and you can customize them. So when you start a new solution in SmartSuite, you're able to start a new solution from scratch, or you can start from a template. Template is just stuff that we pre-built based on best-in-class processes and standards of different industries, but obviously everything is customizable. You can start from scratch depending on what I'm using. If I know there's a good template, I'll typically download a template. Otherwise, I'll just start from scratch. I like building things step by step on my own. We do have a list of all the upcoming webinars, which you can see over here. We have something new that we just recently introduced, which is SmartSuite Hours, which basically we have a member of our onboarding team sitting on Zoom, and you can just join live questions, pop in, ask any question, get your answers on the spot, and head on to continue with your day. So that's definitely something you want to check out and register for if you'd like. Our academy is coming out before the end of the year. We're going to have some nice announcements coming out soon, but that's going to be a step-by-step academy, written text academy, as well as videos, step-by-step, taking you from the first click in SmartSuite all the way to the most advanced levels of automations, formulas, integrations, etc. Our online community is becoming more and more active in recent days. You may want to join that and share what you're building in SmartSuite. You can ask the community questions and so on. We have our help center, which you can reach from over here, or you can reach from right here. So the help center will be the different articles. You can search by specific topics and expand them. In the topics, you'll see we have a lot of GIFs, pictures, very detailed step-by-step. You can search over here for specific articles, or you can just look through them, very detailed articles, and then they expand and collapse from within your platform. So for example, if I'm trying to understand how a recycle bin works, I can come here, then reach to my recycle bin, do whatever I need to do. And then if I still need some sort of help understanding, I can just pop right in here and I have my help article ready for me to go. When it comes to the top menu over here, I just want to showcase a few things. So the homepage will always, these dots in SmartSuite will always take you back to your homepage. And if you're within a specific solution, you want to reach back to the homepage, this is how you do it. Up top over here, we have our power search, which allows you to search for records, files, members, or anything. And you can specify your search within a specific solution or across all solutions. And so I can really go through searching over here. And then over to the right side, we have our member directory, which we can see everyone within our member directory and see their profiles. People can list their skills, and these are all searchable and filterable, so you can see who else is in your organization. The starred items is basically what it sounds like, is basically specific items that you always want to get back to, specific items that you reach for very frequent. So you can star anything from a record to a view to an app. People really tend to use starred items to just reach back. And again, this whole ribbon will be available from anywhere within the platform. And if I'm within a solution, I can always reach to my starred items and jump into whatever it is that I was looking for. Over here in the My Work section is basically all of your to-do items. We'll expand on this more later on in the webinar, but everything that is assigned to you, and the way we know this is a to-do item is if the assignee field is linked to a status field. When you set up the assignee field, will show up for you over here. You can group it by different groups, so priority, due date, solution status, etc. And then you can change the status, back over here, you can change the status, you can change the due date, you can see what solution it's for, change the priority, or dive right in and work on that record, come back and do the rest of whatever you're looking for. You can go into your closed assignments. You can add yourself or someone else on your team a new task. When you add a task from within here, it doesn't necessarily go into a specific app. You can tie it to a solution as reference, but it won't go in as a typical record in an app. So this is basically simple to do items that you want to assign yourself or someone else on your team. You just give it a task name, description, due date, and priority status, and that's it. We're going to exit without saving, and we are going to continue down here. Notifications, same concept. So anytime you're notified from within the platform, it comes up over here. And then as you can see, if you click on any of those notifications, you'll reach directly into that record that this notification is related to. You can set your notification settings here, etc. Last, over here is your section, so your personal information and your workspace information. If you're an admin, you can do things from here like changing your language, changing your time zone, changing your work days, which are used in formulas, grabbing your API key if you're trying to integrate with other platforms that use API keys for integration, set availability status. This is similar to Slack, so other people can see where you're holding, and so on. If you have multiple workspaces from the homepage, you can always come in here and switch to a different workspace, and then you can set a particular workspace as a default workspace. Anytime you log into SmartSuite, this is your default workspace that you get logged into, and then you can always switch into other workspaces. It's particularly helpful for folks who are doing outsourced services for different companies, and they want to deploy SmartSuite in different environments, but each company needs their own workspace, or partners who want to be serving their clients. They can toggle between different workspaces, or this is where you would start a new workspace if you have already a workspace and for whatever reason you wanted to set up a new one. Over here, you can change the display of how you want to see all of your solutions. We call each one of these tiles solutions, and you can search for a particular solution over here. Again, we have the power search, which is searching for any particular item, up top on the left, and then you have searching for solutions over here. As you have many solutions, as you can tell, I have a tremendous amount of solutions in here that we're demoing. This is a client demo account. If you star any solution, it will show up top over here. And so typically what I do is I'll star all the most frequently used solutions so that they come up to the my favorite section and they're easily accessible. And then anything else, if I ever need it, I can search for it down here or search for it over here. I can unstar items and so on. Okay. Now, without further ado, we're going to dive into the actual structure of the platform and what is the best way to build processes in here and so on. Again, if there's any questions on anything I'm talking about, or if you want to make sure I'm covering something specific, please pop it in the chat and we will do our best to cover it. And we will definitely open up the floor towards the end of the webinar for an open Q&A. And so in SmartSuite, just a quick explanation about the hierarchy and structure over here. And as I mentioned, each one of these would be considered a solution. A solution is what you would put a key process within your business that may have many sub-processes in it, but it's a key process in your business. And so let's say CRM would be one solution. Project management might be another solution. HR might be another solution, or recruiting or onboarding, or however you want to divide it. We'll talk a little bit more about the ramifications of what's the difference if I put it in one solution versus I separate it into two solutions. Really, it boils down to comfort and what you're used to, as well as permissioning. But we'll dive right in. So in a solution, if I click on one of these solutions, what I see over here are different lists, and these are basically processes within your key process. We call these apps. Okay, so apps are basically lists of information. Within each app, as you can tell, we have lists of records. So records are specific items in that process. And then within each app, you're able to specify custom fields or custom attributes that you want to be tracking on this item. And if it's my client list, I may want to be tracking size, location, status. But if it's my tasks, I may want to be tracking due date, project, allocated time. And so basically in each app, you're able to set up your own custom fields. And if you'd like to set up any new custom fields, this is where you would do it. And we have over 40 different field types. So this is really outstanding in the industry, the amount of custom field types, anything from full name, which will actually separate the values for full name, and you can even have titles, to phone numbers, email addresses, and everything is data validated. And so we have currencies, numbers, addresses, links, URLs, tags, votes, ratings, time tracking, checklists, sub items, signature, lookup fields, roll-up fields, formula fields. I can go on and on, but we really did a tremendous amount to build in a lot of custom fields so that all your data is validated and you can track specific types of data in specific validated fields. And so as you come in here and add different custom fields, you can then fill out information for each record on that custom field. Now, within a particular app, all the data that you enter and all the custom fields that you have will always be there. However, there are different ways that you can look at the information. So basically, think about it as different windows in which you can peek into the information and get the right information at the right time without having to be overwhelmed by all the information. And so this is what we call views. So views, the information doesn't change when I switch from view to view. It's just a different way of how the information is being displayed. And that is controlled first and foremost by the view type. And so I can display this same information that I have here in multiple different view types. I can display it in a grid view, which is what we're seeing right now. I can display it in a card view. I can display it in a Kanban view, calendar, timeline, map, chart, dashboard, and form, and so on. We have multiple different field types. These views, I'll just show you a few of them. So we have, for example, clients by locations, where you can see pins over here, and you can control all sorts of settings when it comes to your map view, right? So I can have a satellite view, a hybrid view, silver, retro, control the styling, color, location radius, and so on. So this is if I wanted to see all my clients on a map view. I can then switch and say I want to see them on a calendar view, and I want to enter clients on a calendar. So if I click, I can enter new records. I can see other clients that are here within the record, and so on. Then I have my dashboard view, where I can set up different widgets that are tracking specific information about basically metrics or aggregate information about that particular app or other apps. And as I mentioned, multiple different view types. Now, note that within each view type, you have controls up top over here. So you have controls like fields to display. And if you look in the actual record, there are many, many different fields that we're tracking, many custom fields that we want to know about this client. Not all of those fields have to be displayed in this grid view, only part of them, because I don't have to see all the information in this particular view. And so you can control what fields you want to enter, you can reorder them, or you can play around with them over here, just like a spreadsheet, resize them, and so on. You have sorting, so you can sort and add multiple sortings one on top of another if you want to sort by any of the custom fields here. So I can sort by status, for example. And if I sort by status, I can do first to last. So I see active and then inactive, or I can do last to first, and so on. Filtering is another key piece. I can filter information and say, I only want to see specific information. And again, you can filter based on any of the custom fields. So I can filter by status, and I can say, is any of paused, active? So it doesn't show me the inactive. I can do inactive and active. It doesn't show me the paused. You can build filters one on top of each other with the and or condition. And so this becomes very powerful when you have a lot of clients or a lot of information within a particular app. You can start building out views, and you can have multiple grid views. So like this grid view looks completely different than this grid view. And the reason is because I have different fields. I have different groupings. So I can group information and I can have subgroups. So for example, I can have over here a group by industry. And then within the industry, I can have group by status. And I can collapse all by default, or I can expand all by default. I can make status the master group and industry within status the subgroup, so that basically this is the active status group. And within active, I have my different groups, apparel, software by industry, right? So these are groupings. I'm going to get rid of these groupings. We have spotlight, so you can draw attention to specific information. So for example, I can say where status is, let's say, active. Let's color it green. And then you can add multiple conditions, or you can just add a new spotlight. I can say where status is inactive. Let's color it with red. And I can say color the field status red, or I can say color the record status red. right? And this allows you to comprehend information easily. I can control the row size. I can search for records within this view. So this only searches what's on my page with what's in this view. And then I can share this view with someone external by generating the link. Now, this link for any external people will only show them what I set up in the view. They cannot open a record. They don't have to be SmartSuite users. They can bookmark this link, and this link always refreshes. And so, for example, if I change the spotlight settings here and I delete my spotlights and I come back here and refresh, I won't see the spotlight anymore. If I apply a new filter, apply a new grouping, apply a new sorting, I come back here, I won't see it. If a new record enters this page and stays here based on the filters and groupings, I'll see it here. And so this is a way to dynamically share information without having to constantly email a new spreadsheet. But these are all view settings. I can now rename this view, right? I call it all active clients. Let's call it all active clients 1. I can duplicate it. I can add a description to this view to explain what information I'm doing here. I can have it as a public view or a private view. So private view means this is just a view that I see, no one else can see it. And if it's a public view, I can lock it. So that way no one else can change it and mess around with the filters and groupings and other information that I set here. For example, let's say I wanted to create a new view, but I only wanted to see in this new view active clients. And I wanted to see the same information. I would duplicate this view and I would say all active client, and we're going to duplicate this view. And now I can apply a new filter and put on status is active. And I can save this. I can save this now. If I wanted to get rid of specific fields, I can either remove them from here, or I can remove them from the drop down over here. I can remove the fields from display. If I wanted to change settings of any view type, of any field type, I can double click over here. And for example, this is going to be a single select field. I can change all sorts of settings when it comes to over here. I can require an entry and so on. There's a tremendous amount of settings that we're not going to be able to even touch on. But this is the basic concept of the hierarchy where we talked about, again, just to remind you, solutions. This is the top level solutions, and solutions has their own set of settings, permissions, etc. Then we have within solutions apps, and we'll talk about the permissions as well. But we have apps over here, and then within apps we have records, and records have custom fields and different different view types, which can be controlled. Now let's talk for a second about the specific settings that you can apply to every level of hierarchy. So if we go into the solution level, you can obviously name it, change the color, change the icon, have a solution guide where you can basically write what the solution is about, how to use it. And you can now also control permissions. And so in permissions, you can have either all members have access, teams. So you can set up teams in here and say only the marketing team has access, only the sales team has access, etc. Or you can set up advanced permissions. Advanced permissions means you're choosing a specific person and you're giving them either full access, editor, contributor, assignee, commenter, reviewer. There's a lot to learn about these different statuses, but these are different access controls. But these basically, as you can read over here, so for example, full access would mean they can see, edit everything. Editor would mean they can create and edit, but they can only view other content. So they will not be able to see they will not be able to edit information that other people already entered. So records that are already in there, they won't be able to do it. Assignee means they can only see or edit what's assigned to them. So there may be 100 records in here, but if they're only assigned to 5 of them, they'll only see 5. So multiple different access controls. Now, I want to show you something interesting. When we talk about the apps have, by default, they inherit permissions from the solution. So the same solutions you put on the solution, all the apps apply the same permissions, but you can override permissions for the particular app and do the same exact thing we were doing prior on the solution. So you have all those different permission accesses on the app level. And so technically I could have a solution that is shared with many different people, but then the app is shared with much less people and vice versa. And so back to solution for a moment, we have automations. And automations are cross solution, but this is where you'll be able to reach them. And we'll talk about automations more towards the end of the webinar. We have Zapier and we have Make coming by the end of the month, which are basically, they'll enable you to integrate into 5,000 other apps directly from SmartSuite. So you can have all sorts of triggers and actions. Solution API is basically specific API documentation for this solution that you're in. And you can browse through the specific documentation and examples and switch between different solutions once you're here. And then we have back over here, you can duplicate the solution, import data from CSV, Excel, contacts, calendar, or delete the solution. When it comes to the app level permissions, again, you can duplicate the app. You can move an app to another solution. And so let's say I built this app here in agency marketing, but now I want to move it to my CRM because I decided to reorganize things. I can simply just drop that in there and everything continues to work the same way, except if you build out any external integrations, those might break, but all the other stuff should work fine. And then again, we talked about permissions and deleting app, importing data on the app level, same concept. And so let's go for a second into the record level. When you're dealing with a record level, you can grab a link to that particular record. If you want to share it elsewhere, you can star it. You can see all the activity that ever happened on the particular record at any given time. You can, if you're not assigned to a record, but you want to watch and get notifications on changes that are happening, you can assign yourself to follow this record. And that means you'll get updates, notifications when changes happen. You can comment. So this is a really powerful feature depending on the type of information you're trying to work on, but you're able to comment on a particular record. You can tag other people, which will notify them. And when you tag other people, you also have the ability to notify people, to assign people, sorry. And if you assign, this goes into the My Work section as a to-do item. And the to-do item only, and so once you have an assigned comment, only the person who assigned it or the person who got assigned can actually resolve this comment, right? So I can mark it as resolved or Tara can mark it as resolved, no one else. You can respond to comments. You can start a new conversation. You can react to comments, and then you can filter by specific types of comments. When you look at the information over here, so first of all, you have 3 different settings to look at information. You can have the 1 column view. You can have the 50-50 column view. Let me just close the commenting so you can see that a little better. We have a 1 column view. We have the 50-50 view. And we have the 70-30 view. People like playing around with these to be able to organize information. Another key piece is sections. And so you can have specific sections that you set up, and you can set up new sections by coming to the 3-dot menu from any field. And you can add a new section, call it something, and then you have settings to collapse it by default so that anytime you open the record, it's collapsed by default, and you have to expand it, or it can be expanded by default. Once you have a section, you can organize field types in and out of the section, move them across sections. This is a great way to organize your information, especially as you have many different records. You can obviously print, export, share by email, copy, or duplicate records, or go into full screen mode for a particular record. That is basically a quick overview of records, view types, the hierarchy solution apps. I'd love to pause for a moment and see if we have any questions or anything in particular that people would like me to go into. Otherwise, we can continue to talk about a few nice field types and maybe a bit about automations and formulas. If you have any questions or you'd like me to expand on something specific, please put it in the chat. Okay, I see a question coming in from Greg. Are you planning to add mind maps to the view options? That is a great request. I don't believe that is currently on our roadmap, but I am sure Emma, who I believe is probably on the webinar, can add that as an open roadmap request, and we can definitely look into that. Okay, got it. Okay, Greg. we will definitely take a look into that. I'm aware of what you're talking about. I see a question coming in from Daniel. Can you bring in emails via forwarding to automatically generate a new record? That is a great question. And so SmartSuite doesn't have that built in natively. There are two ways to do that. So we see customers setting that up with Zapier, where you can set up a Zap to watch a specific inbox and create new records from there. And you have actually controls on what becomes the title, what becomes the description, if you want to scrape data and put custom data into specific custom fields. That's one way of doing it. We also have an integration with a very interesting company called Ply. That's right here. It's an extension on my Chrome. So if you're a user of Chrome, you can take advantage of this extension. And this basically adds visual UI buttons into your inbox or into many different apps, but Gmail is one of them. And you can select specific emails to open new records and even type in information from a UI modal that kind of opens up. Hopefully that answers your question. If you want to learn more about Ply, we have a blog on our website. We have a few YouTube videos on our channel explaining this exact feature and integration. And if you want to take advantage of it, they're an open beta. They're completely free for SmartSuite users. And they'll do a half-an-hour onboarding call with you to give you access so they can show you how to use. Yes, so Daniel's asking if Ply would also parse the email into custom fields. Yes, so Ply can actually custom parse your email or any other. Actually, they integrate with many other platforms. So not just email, but probably like they have, not probably, I know, Slack messages, all sorts of things. They can parse, but yes, they can parse specific information into specific custom fields. And even more than that is they can open up a custom modal where you can enter specific information that may not be on the email, which is an advantage to other products that don't really allow you to have that option. So that's optional, but you can have a modal that allows you to add more data into the custom fields. Okay, I see a question from Greg. How do Smart Docs integrate other apps displays like a mind map, for instance? So Smart Docs I can just show for a moment Smart Docs. Smart Docs is really right. This is Smart Docs. So Smart Docs really has basically any type of formatting option you can think of. And so you can just copy paste in here any type of other document and kind of drop that in here, if that makes sense. You have all these display options. Okay, I see a question coming in. How can you document to an app in order for people working on the space to review it? Thank you. So the documentation is not on the app level, but it's on the solution level, right? If I come in here, I have a solution guide, which I can edit, and I can delete all this information. This is similar to Smart Docs. So you can add in here information. The other way of doing it is simply having Smart Doc fields or adding things in descriptions of records, if that makes sense. So descriptions of records are also Smart Docs. I see a request coming in for a built out Smart Doc. So Smart Docs are custom fields. So you can add as many Smart Doc fields, right? And name them. Let's say I can name this SOP. You can have by default values. So like I can build out by default phone, right? And then anytime a record is added, it will include that value by default. And default values are something that we have across many different records. Now, when I add a new record, phone is there by default. And I can come in here and add any type of information. So you can color things, highlight things, etc. Okay, excellent. So great questions. I'd love to continue answering them. I guess if anyone has more questions, please throw them in the chat. We'll open up the floor for Q&A in a bit. Just want to walk through a few key custom fields. So again, just to refresh, when you have specific custom fields that you want to add that don't exist already in the space, you can add them here. When they exist in the space, you're just not seeing them on the view, you just want to add them over here. Let's look at the assignee field type. We have an assigned to field type. And as you notice, obviously you can rename this, but as you notice, when the assigned to field type, you have the option of displaying this in the my work section, which is up top over here, this section. And that is by linking it to status. This is a key thing. So when you're tracking data within SmartSuite, you may not want things to clog up the my work section. So you won't link it to a status, even though you have an assigned to field. But if you do want it to be an action item for that person to complete, you'll want to link it to status, and that will show that in the my work section. We have default values on many different custom fields. For example, record creator can be the default. So anytime I create a record here, let's just add this. Anytime I create a record, by default, I'm going to be the assignee unless I remove it, because that's how I set up the default. We have defaults on many other custom fields, such as single select, multi-select, and so on. A few more key custom fields are checklists. So checklists are also a way to set up quick to-do items. Checklists can basically have a task name, a due date, and an assigned to. They show up in the My Work section for whoever is assigned to them, and they can be completed and checked off. And you can see the progress, right? So if I add this item, and now I check it off, you can see the progress, 100%, 1 out of 1, and you can see that in the grid view. Sub items is a similar concept. The difference is that sub items actually has the full set of custom fields that you would have on the record, on the main record level. And these are custom field types, so they don't have to match the parent tasks. When it comes to the title field type, we have the option of manual input, require entries to be unique and require an entry to this field. You can uncheck any of these options, or you can auto-generate. So auto-generating basically says you will not be able to edit the record title. Instead, we're going to generate one, like, for example, the industry and some other, and the assignee, and this will basically automatically populate. If I add myself as an assignee, this will automatically populate the record title. So that is another key piece over here. There's a very important view that I'd like to share, which is forms. Forms allows you to set up public forms, and you can add any of the custom fields that are in this space to the form. So I can add, let's say, industry, logo, name, projects, size, SOP, status. Any of the custom fields can be added here. And this can become, now you can control the settings. So like the display message or redirect URL, once this is done, you can rearrange fields. You can edit the logo. You can mark fields as required, enter help text, and so on. You can add more fields to this workspace, to this app if you need to. And you can add any type of field, as you can tell over here. You can have smart docs, you can have anything. This now can be shared or embedded. And so if we take a look over here, this is something you would share externally. And folks can fill out this form, and they can upload attachments to it. They can fill out the smart doc field if we had one in here. They can do many different things here. Let's add the SOP. So we can show the smart doc. So this is a smart doc. I can make this required. And all I have to do is simply come back to my form, refresh the page. Anytime you update the form in SmartSuite, the form gets updated live. Here's my smart doc, and people can enter any information into the smart doc and submit it. Once a record is submitted, if all the field types, the required field types are submitted, that will create a new record in the app. And that record will show up in the appropriate views based on the different filters that you have applied. And this is basically forms, which allows you to interact with other people. And then as you can see over here, these blue icons, this shows you that there's a public link that allows other people to access it. So we showed over here previously that we have this share view. And because we have that share view, when I look at my forms, I see that it's somehow shared. I can come in here and disable my shared link. Same concept with forms. I see over here it's publicly shared. That means that it's active. There's a public link that's people can access this form. I can disable it, and that will remove that icon over here. And so that really completes the concept of forms. Let's talk for a moment about formulas, and then we're going to dive into automation. So one important field before we actually talk about formulas is the linked record field type. I can link any information from this app to any other app in my entire workspace. You're not limited to the same solution. You can link to anything across the entire workspace. So for example, I can link my customers to projects. I can link my projects to tasks and so on. I can allow linking to multiple records. I can, in the advanced settings, control the fields that are going to be displayed. I can sort it or filter. I can say maybe if I'm linking to tasks, I only want to allow the possibility of linking to open tasks versus closed tasks and so on. Once a record is linked, it can actually be used in formulas as well. So let's just go into formulas for a second. And in formulas, I have this simple operator. This is a field type, so you can rename it and so on. You have a simple operators, choose fields, etc. Or you can go into the advanced operator and use any type of field or operator, etc. You can write any type of advanced custom formula. Now, if you choose any of the linked records, so for example, I have over here a link to projects and you use the dot operator, now I have all of the projects custom fields. I'm not looking at the client custom fields. I'm looking at the project custom fields because I use the dot operator. I'm going to delete that dot. And now my custom fields change back to the current records custom fields. Again, if I put the dot operator, it changed to the linked record field. So I don't have to use lookups. I don't have to use anything like that to use my linked record field types in formulas. So that is a quick overview of formulas. If you want to learn more about formulas, we have specific webinars and YouTube videos online. Last but not least, we're going to touch about automation. Automations allow you to automate a big part of your workflow, whether that is setting up recurring tasks or adding new tasks at a specific time, changing statuses based on custom fields being updated, sending out emails or notifications based on records reaching specific conditions. We can, for example, if a client submits a form, an intake form, I can then send them a thank you email saying, let's choose, so here's my client list, and we're going to choose a form that we just set up previously on the client list, and I can say when a form is submitted, and you can add conditions and say, let's say industry is equal to apparel or whatever it is, or you don't have to have this conditions. I can just say, do this anytime a form is submitted, add action. So now I can say, create a record in a new solution or a new app, update an existing record, send an email, send a Google message, Slack, send a text message. So like, for example, I can have every time a form is submitted by a client, I can send them a thank you text message. Or I can send them an email. In the email, I can also customize the email. So I can add a subject, or I can actually have a subject that pulls from one of the custom fields. I can send to dynamically whoever filled out this form or whoever is assigned to the form. I can have a message, same concept. So for example, I can say over here, hi, and then add their name. And so this will automatically pull their name in, continue writing the message. You can have attachments, and again, dynamic attachments, so that maybe it sends them the attachment that they uploaded from the form to confirm, and then I can get an internal notification. And so this is a really powerful feature that we're not even doing justice by just covering it for a few minutes, but this is also a whole nother area, which you can definitely check out on our YouTube channel or upcoming webinars, previous webinars, but this is a whole area in and to itself. But basically this runs any type of automation, and I can have multiple actions running on the same action. So for running on the same trigger, sorry. So when a form is submitted, I can send an email to the client. I can also send them a text message, and I can also update a specific record to say another form was submitted or so on. And this is an essential part of automating your workflow, and where a tool like SmartSuite becomes extremely powerful above and beyond everything else you just saw here. And with that, we conclude our building and automating your first workflow webinar. I'd like to open the floor up for questions. If there are any questions that I missed because I was focusing on my screen, please drop them in the chat again, and I will do my best to answer them now. And feel free to raise your hand if you have any specific questions you want to ask live. Can you save a Smart Doc as a PDF and download? That is a question coming in from Brett. Currently, you can export a view, which will export basically all these different records, including your Smart Doc. You can also export a particular record, which will export that particular record, including the Smart Doc, if you have that set up. I don't believe that you can export a specific doc into like only this section, unless you just copy paste it, and you won't lose your formatting because it's properly formatted. At the same time, I do want to say that we have something called Document Designer coming within weeks. Document Designer will enable you to do basically what you're saying, which is basically direct certain field types dynamically into a document and generate automatic documents based on records and fields within the records. Hopefully that answers the question. Can you use form data points to go into placeholders? So the way to do that is really, like I was showing before, default values, right? So let's say you want a status of every form that gets submitted to be in process. So I'll add the in process field type status. I'll give it a color. I'll drag it up top here. And then I'll go into default and I'll say select status in process every time a new record is created. And so a form creates a new record. So that means anytime I create a new record, this will be updated. We are adding the ability from the actual form view to basically have a placeholder. And let's go into the form view for a second. In the form view right now, you can only have it required. We're talking about the ability to basically be able to select some sort of default value and maybe even hide that. So every time this form gets submitted, this default value comes in versus a different form. I forgot to mention, you can set up multiple different forms. So you can have a form with form for clients, form for this type of client, that type of client, etc. Okay, let's see. We have more questions coming in. Can you populate dynamic data from web, such as info from ZoomInfo? Yes, absolutely. Multiple ways to do that, either through Zapier or through Make or through using our API or using some sort of extension such as Ply, or there's many other extensions. I was looking yesterday actually at a very interesting extension. Let me see if I can, Magical. So Magical also allows you to, Magical works with Smart Suite. So you can, if you have multiple tabs open and you select dynamic fields, they can populate into Smart Suite. Daniel asks, wanting to create completed template docs. Yes, that is coming in Document Designer. You may want to check out our roadmap to learn a little bit more about that feature, but that will basically enable you to create complete document templates, such as invoices, contracts, pulling dynamically from specific fields. I love these questions. Great questions coming in. Seems like we have a very advanced crowd today. And yep, Greg, I see you. Daniel is asking when that will be coming. So Document Designer, it will be released before the end of the year. I don't have an exact date on it, but I do know that they're pretty close to it. So probably even before the end of the year. There's also another way, by the way, Daniel, there's a company called Document. They're going to actually be providing a direct integration with us, I think in Q1 or Q2 of next year. But you can currently set a similar concept up through Zapier. Greg is sending some love. Thank you, Greg. I appreciate it. Okay. Let me scroll through and see if I missed anything. Please feel free to continue sending in your questions. Okay, if there are no more questions, I have one bonus feature I'm going to show everyone today. I see a question. Can you create CSP similar to for customer success use cases and automation? Britt, we have in our templates, I believe we have customer success templates, but we can definitely, one thing I do want to mention is we have 8 hours of free onboarding for anyone who upgrades to a paid account. And so you can definitely contact our team through Entercom. They answer very quickly and efficiently. You can, by the way, send them looms, questions, they'll hop on a call with you and so on, but they also offer 8 hours of free onboarding. Customer success, here we go. We have plenty of templates over here, which you can definitely take a look at. A good CRM. So I possibly maybe look at CRM right? So maybe look at CRM sales light, or go into sales. Actually, we have plenty of CRMs in there. And then, like I showed, you can then tie or link records between a CRM and your customer success space. So I think that would be probably, and run automations between them. Greg is asking, how do you change header titles and grid views? Are we talking about like custom fields, like right here? So, okay, excellent. So there's two ways to do that, multiple ways to do this. From within a grid view, you can either double tap and then you can start changing, right? So I can double tap. I'm going to cancel this. Double tap here. The other way of doing it is clicking the drop down and going into modify field settings and going into there. Or you can also open the record in full view. And I'm going to teach you guys all a trick now. So when you hover over any particular record, no matter the field type, if you hit the space bar, it actually opens the full view without you having to click on it. So that was a quick trick for those of you who didn't see it, but same concept. You can double click over here and you'll reach the record settings, or you can reach the three dot over here and modify field settings. Hopefully that was helpful. Does that work in Kanban view as well? Let's test it out. Let's go set up a Kanban view. There we go. There we go. And we're going to do this based on no fields available. So we have to set up a view. Let's go into contacts. Technically, we would have to set up like a, let's go into customers and let's set up a status field type. There isn't one already. There isn't one. So let's set up a status field type. And status. Let's just go with the default. Here's a quick trick I wanted to show you all. You can multi-select many different records, and you have the controls down here, delete, export, print. But you can also change something like a status or a custom field or something like that, and it will apply to all of them. There we go. It applies to everything, and then remember to unselect so that you're good. So let's change over here to complete. There we go. It takes a few seconds, and you can do this for, okay, so now for what I meant to say, you can do this for multi-select, single select, etc. But let's now go ahead and set up a Kanban view. I'm going to set up as a public view, and we can now also, again, control fields to display. So let's say I want to see the account files, the account manager, account notes, the address, etc. And then from a Kanban view, typically you have to click into the record. And then again, you can change the field header by double clicking. You can drag things that will assign them to different people because we're doing it based on assignee now. You can switch and say, let's do it based on a status. Is there a quick way to collapse those boxes? You can really unselect the status, the fields to display, right? So if you only wanted to show the box titles, you would just show the box titles. You do not have to do it item by item. When it starts, it typically does. So it's basically, this is similar to what we were showing in the grid view on fields to display. You control over here the fields to display. And so if you want to see more information, you can see more information. You want to see less information, you can see less information. We also have a card view. This is a grid view. We have a card view. So a card view is a similar concept. It's just not a Kanban view. It's just a different way to see information. Again, same concept, grouping, filters, etc. Is there a collapse all button in Kanban? I don't believe there is right now. We actually got that feedback earlier this week as well. So I think that is entered and we are working on it. You could collapse columns. So you can collapse like a specific column, but not a specific field unless you're controlling the fields to display, if that makes sense. Okay, Greg, I see Greg has a good point. He wants to be able to expand and collapse easily the different cards over here one by one. And that is definitely feedback that we got earlier this week. So I can echo that to the team again. Okay, folks, we are at 11:30. Thank you all for joining and hope to see you on the next webinar. We have some very interesting and exciting webinars. Check out our webinar schedule. We have webinars talking about hierarchies, partners, product updates. We have major releases coming out within the next week or so. And so stay tuned and see you on social, see you on Entercom. Thank you everyone for joining.